Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Journey to Greatness, day 358 of 365 with David McDonald, the GOAT. Happy Monday. 7 days and counting. Happy Monday. All right, I'll see you guys. I'll see everybody on the other side. Good morning, AJ. Good morning, Liz. Happy Monday. All right, welcome back. So we just finished our meditation routine, and now we're going to begin our reading routine. Currently, we are reading the Richest Man in Babylon book by George Clason, and it has been really good so far. So with that being said, I will see you all on the other side. Good morning, Miss Miner, and good morning, Auntie Louisa. Fatima, good morning. Good morning. All right. So in normal circumstances, what we would be doing is going into our journaling routine. But because we have officially finished 5 complete journals in the last year, I'm choosing not to continue with the journaling aspect, at least for the remaining of this year. So feel free to jump into the journaling routine. But right now, we're going to just do a slight recap on what we've read in the last 2 days. And this is really important. See, we're coming to the end of this book. We're like in the last 20 pages. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Thank you, AJ. That's amazing. Good morning, Brandon. So, um, this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, has been very inspirational in terms of saving money. Like, I've always known, like, okay, you have to put some money away, but the way that this book describes the concept of building wealth is so basic and so relevant, um that these principles that have been around for so long, it just hits a certain way. So if you have a chance, I would really read this book, because it's a really good way to fundamentally build wealth for yourself when it comes to mindset. Once you build that first, then you're able to go out and execute, and it becomes a lot easier to manifest for yourself, right? When it comes to building wealth, financial wealth. So right now we're in the middle of a story of a man named Davasir and Tarkad. And so Tarkad pretty much is a young man. Um, 1 second here. Let me grab my ground. So Tarkad is a young man who's hungry, hasn't been able to find his way. And Debasir is a very wealthy camel trader of Babylon. And long story short, Debasir asks Tarkad, because Tarkad is the son of one of Debasir's old friends, to come join him inside of his temple to eat. And he's telling him about the story about when he was a camel herder, and or a camel trader, and when he at one point, pretty much found he was pretty much in a hard place. 1 second. A murmur of surprise ran through the audience, to which Debasir listened with satisfaction. When I was a young man, continued Debasir, after another vicious onslaught on the goat leg, because he was eating goat right in front of Tarkad, who was starving, I learned the trade of my father in making saddles. I worked with him in his shop, and took to myself a wife. And I actually think we went over this. Debasir became a robber, so he robbed some people. He was successful the first time. He was not successful the second time and was caught. He was sold as a slave in Syria, right? And his master thereupon questioned him, "What upon you know about camels?" Striving to conceal my eagerness, I replied, "I can make them kneel, I can load them, I can lead them on long trips without tiring. If need be, I can repair their trappings." "The slave speaks forward enough," observed my master, "if thou so desire. Sirrah, take this man for thy a camel tender." So Debasir is sitting there. He's a slave. He got caught robbing caravans, huge caravans. And one of the wives of the king who caught him, or the master who purchased him, said he He doesn't look like somebody who needs to protect us as women. He needs to go be with the camels. He needs to go tend to the camels. So the master then asks him that question, what do you know about camels? And he's saying, okay, I know how to do these things for the camels. So then, so I turned over to Syra, and that day I led her camel upon a long journey to her sick mother. I took the occasion to thank her for her intercession and also to tell her I was not a slave by birth, but the son of a free man, an honorable saddle maker of Babylon. I also told her much of my story. Her comments were disconcerting to me, and I pondered much afterwards on what she said. How can you call yourself a free man when your weakness has brought you to this? If a man has in himself a soul of a slave, will he not become one no matter what his birth, even as water seeks its level? If a man has within him the soul of a free man, will he not become respected and honored in his own city in spite of his misfortune? And I think what she's saying here is that there really is no excuse for you to be in the situation that you are in. If you are a free man, there is no respectable reason why you are now a slave. If you are a slave, you're a slave because that is what you have chosen to be, essentially. Which is a powerful statement to make and very interesting considering the history of the world, right? But there may be more to that I might be missing, but nonetheless, that's my analysis of it. For over a year at this time, for over a year, I was a slave and lived with slaves, but I could not become as one of them. One day, Sarah asked me, in the eventime, when the other slaves can mingle and enjoy of society of each other, why dost thou sit in thy tent alone? To which I responded, I am pondering what you said to me. I wonder if I have the soul of a slave. I cannot join them, so I must sit apart. I too must sit apart, she confided. My dowry was large, and my lord married me because of it. Yet he does not desire me. What every woman longs for is to be desired. Because I am barren and have neither son nor daughter, must I sit apart. Were I a man, I would rather die than be such a slave. But the conventions of our tribe make slaves of women. What think thou of me by this time? I asked her suddenly. Have I the soul of a man, or have I the soul of a slave? Have you desired to repay the just debts you owe in Babylon? She parried. Yes, I have the desire, but I see no way. If thou continually let the years slip by and make no effort to repay, then thou hast the contemptible soul of a slave. No man is otherwise who cannot respect themselves, and no man can respect himself who does not repay honest debts. But what can I do who am a slave in Syria? Stay a slave in Syria, thou weakling. I am not a weakling, I denied hotly. Then prove it. How? Does not thy great king fight his enemies in every way he can, and with every force he has? The debts are thy enemies. They ran thee out of Babylon. You left them alone, and they grew too strong for thee. Hadst thou fought them as a man, thou couldst have conquered them and been one honored among the townspeople. But thou had not the soul to fight them. And behold, thy pride has gone down until thou art a slave in Syria. Much I thought over her unkind accusations, and many defensive phrases I worded to prove myself not a slave at heart. But I was not to have a chance to use them. 3 days later, the maid of Syra took me to her mistress. My mother is again sick, she said. Saddle the 2 camels, the best camels of my husband's herd. Tie on water skins and saddle bags for a journey. The maid will give thee food at the kitchen tent. So a lot going on here. Well, not really a lot, but a couple things going on here. One being at this point, Davosir he's not sitting with the slaves because he's not classifying himself as a slave. He's not viewing himself as a slave. He doesn't feel that he's a slave, so he's not sitting with the slaves and mingling with them. Sira, who is the maid, who's one of the maids of the mistress, she's sitting here pretty much having or giving Debussy a conversation of self-reflection, asking him and clarifying to him, which is the second point here, that his debts are his enemies. The thing you run from is something to shine a light on. The thing you run from is not an enemy. You have to just face it. And then once you face it, you're able to conquer it. And so she's suggesting for him to go back to Debussy, to go back to Babylon and pay his debts. Thy debts are thine enemies, who have run thee out of Babylon, Sira had said. So what ended up happening was Debussy packed his bags, and long story short, I packed the camels, wondering much at the quantity of provisions the maid provided, for the mother dwelt less than a day's journey away. The maid rode the rear camel, which followed, and I led the camel of my mistress. When we reached her mother's house, it was just dark. Sira dismissed the maid and said to me, Debussy, hast thou soul of a free man or a soul of a slave? The soul of a free man, I insisted. Now is thy chance to prove it. The master hath imbibed deeply, and his chiefs are in the stupor. Take then these camels and make thy escape. Here in the bag is raiment of thy master disguised thee. I will say thou stole the camels and ran while I visited my sick mother. So, by the grace of the universe, Debussy now has a way to recreate himself. A way he would never have even thought. And it was Sira who gave him the camels, who said, hey, go find your way back to Babylon. So now, and go repay those debts as a free man. And Debussy said, okay. So he takes the camels, he goes on his journey. He's like, doesn't know where to go. So he's wandering in the darkness, which is actually something interesting because we talked about this yesterday at the Journey to Greatness lunch that we had with everyone. And one of the questions that was posed by one of our friends in the circle was, how do you know how to get there? How do you know how to do something? How do you know how to achieve a goal if you don't know how to do it, right? Like how are you able to move forward in something if you don't know where to go, essentially? And the direct answer to that question was, you have the goal. The universe will take care of the rest. The how doesn't really matter. Now, an advanced idea or an advanced progression of that thought, that's something that I'm testing out personally, and I'm still testing it out, is to say, okay, through steps 1, 2, and 3, I will get to my goal. Well, what that does is, when you say I'm going to get to the goal, you don't set timelines. Well, therefore, the goal is now able to be achieved in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So not necessarily right away or within a certain time frame. The universe will obviously bless you within the right timing. So timing is everything for the universe, right? And timing for you have to be ready for it, ready to receive whatever is getting ready to be blessed upon you. But in this situation, he's getting ready to walk. Debussy is getting ready to walk into the unknown, and the blessing that came was one that he didn't even imagine would happen. And so that's another testimony, I feel personally, to never give up and never stop believing. Do your thing and do your thing to the best of your ability, whatever that is, and always know it and never lose faith. Always know that you will succeed and know that you will never fail and never lose faith. So with that, I will conclude for today for 2 reasons. One is because my camera's about to die, or my phone's about to die. My computer's about to die. And 2, I'm going to go drink some coffee. So for everybody who jumped on the messenger board this morning, good morning. And everybody who's at home watching, good morning. Thank you to everybody who joined us for the Journey to Greatness lunch yesterday. It was very thought-provoking and very inspirational as always. And for everybody who missed it, for the next time, hopefully you guys can join us and you girls can join us. And I hope everybody has the best day of their lives today. Happy Monday, and I will see you all tomorrow at 5.